The courtroom was silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. On one side, my brother Mark, looking smug in his expensive suit. On the other, me feeling like my whole world was about to crumble. This wasn't just a legal battle over our late father's inheritance. It was the final, ugly chapter of a family story, filled with secrets and betrayal. It all started a year ago when our father passed away. He was a self-made man building a successful construction company from the ground up. I'd worked alongside him since I was a teenager, learning the ropes, sharing his passion. Mark, on the other hand, was always distant. He went to a fancy business school, took a high-paying job in another city, and rarely visited. He saw the family business as old-fashioned, beneath him. Dad never said it, but I could see the hurt in his eyes every time Mark dismissed his life's work. When the will was read, we were all shocked. Dad had left the entire company, the house, everything, to Mark. I was left with a small, almost insulting cash sum. It made no sense. Dad and I were so close. We'd had countless conversations about me taking over one day. He'd always said, "This will all be yours, kiddo. You've earned it." Mark's explanation was cold and simple. Dad changed his mind. He wanted a real businessman to run things, not just a handyman. The words cut deeper than any knife. We produced a will, signed just a few months before Dad's death, that confirmed his story. I knew in my gut something was wrong. My father, even in his final days, was sharp as a tack. He wouldn't have done this to me, not without a reason, not without at least talking to me. So I did the only thing I could. I contested the will. My friends and family thought I was crazy, that I was just grieving and couldn't accept Dad's decision. They warned me that fighting Mark would tear what was left of our family apart and drain my savings. But I had to know the truth. For Dad's memory and for my own sanity. The legal battle was grueling. Mark's lawyers painted me as a bitter, jealous younger brother, someone who was incompetent and felt entitled to something I didn't deserve. They brought up every mistake I'd ever made, twisting my hard work into a narrative of failure. I felt completely alone, fighting against a mountain of lies. My own brother was trying to destroy my reputation, all for money. My lawyer, a kind but realistic woman named Sarah, told me our chances were slim. Unless you can prove fraud or undue influence, the court will uphold the most recent will, she explained. We needed a smoking gun, and we just didn't have one. The turning point came from the most unexpected place. A few weeks before the final court date, I was cleaning out my dad's old workshop, a place I had avoided since he passed. It was just too painful. As I sorted through dusty toolboxes and old blueprints, I found a small locked metal box tucked away on a high shelf. I'd never seen it before. My heart pounded as I managed to pry it open. Inside, nestled among some old photographs and medals, was a small digital voice recorder and a letter addressed to me. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. The letter was from my dad. He wrote that he was worried about Mark's recent sudden interest in the business. He said Mark had been pressuring him to sign new documents, bringing over lawyers and accountants. Dad wrote, "He keeps telling me it's just estate planning, but something feels off. He gets angry when I ask questions. I'm recording our conversations just in case. I trust you, son." I'd never forget that. My blood ran cold. I immediately pressed play on the recorder. It was horrifying. I heard my father's voice, weaker than I remembered, and then Mark's, smooth and persuasive, then sharp and cruel. I listened as Mark lied, telling Dad the company was on the verge of bankruptcy and that only his modern business acumen could save it. He told Dad that I was mismanaging everything, running the company into the ground behind his back. The most damning recording was the last one. Dad was clearly confused and distressed. He said, "I don't understand this document, Mark. It says you get everything. What about your brother?" And I heard Mark's chilling reply, "Don't worry, Dad. It's just a formality for the bank. I'll make sure he's taken care of. Just sign it. You trust me, don't you?" He had systematically manipulated and isolated our father, feeding him lies to steal his legacy. Walking into that courtroom with the recorder in my pocket felt like marching into battle. I was no longer just fighting for myself. I was fighting for my father's honor. When Sarah presented the evidence, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. We played the recordings for the judge. Mark's face went from smug confidence to pale, abject terror. He started shouting that the recordings were fake, that I had fabricated them. But the digital files had timestamps, and our expert witness confirmed their authenticity. The lies he had so carefully constructed were unraveling in real time for everyone to see. But the final blow wasn't the recordings. It was the testimony of Dad's longtime nurse, a woman named Maria. We had located her just days before the trial. She had quit shortly after the new will was signed, and we never knew why. On the stand, her voice shaking with emotion, she described how she'd witnessed Mark's relentless pressure campaign. She recounted how he would berate my father, control his access to the phone, and tell him that I, his own son, had abandoned him. She said Mr. Henderson loved his family, but in the end, he was a tired, sick man. Mark took advantage of that, told him his youngest son was stealing from him. I saw Mr. Henderson cry after one of their arguments. He made me promise not to tell you, because he didn't want to cause a fight between his boys. I quit because I couldn't bear to watch it anymore. I'm so sorry I didn't speak up sooner. The courtroom was in stunned silence. Mark just sat there, head in his hands. He didn't have any more lies left to tell. The judge's decision was swift. The will was declared invalid due to clear evidence of undue influence and fraud. The original will, which split the estate fairly and left the business to me, was reinstated. Justice was served, but it didn't feel like a victory. As I left the courthouse, I saw Mark being surrounded by reporters. He looked like a stranger to me. I'd lost my father, and in a way I'd lost my brother too. Exposing the truth was necessary, but it came at a great cost. Rebuilding the company after the legal battle and the damage Mark's lies had caused has been tough.